Well, the backstory is that just I decided that I was getting towards the end of my career in, in consulting and tech. And I decided a few years ago that I would go. I always wanted to write a novel. I had a hankering desire to have a go at writing a novel. So I enrolled myself in a creative writing course at Cambridge University back in 2019. By the way, I had a ball, absolutely loved it. And I know Cambridge has kind of gone a bit off the rails in terms of a lot of stuff, but it was a fabulous course, and largely because there was a lot of drinking involved, and I got to stay 2 weeks on campus, actually in one of the colleges. But I did the course, and anyway, it cost quite a lot of money, And my wife, who's an accountant,
How much?
Oh well, I can't remember. It was about like 3 grand or something. I suppose not a huge amount of money, but 3 grand is 3 grand out of your net salary. But and so my wife, who's an accountant, has been saying to me, or was saying to me over the week, when are you going to write your book then? You did the bloody course. Write your book. You're not really doing anything.
I love it.
So I was listening to a podcast by which featured the guy who wrote Conclave. What's his name? Harris. He was in an interview with, I think it was a Radio 4 interview or a podcast or something, and they asked him about how he actually approached like major global bestseller, obviously. And he said, well, it's just simple. It's just hard work. You just get up every morning and you commit to write. He says, I write about 600 words a day, but I write 7 days a week until I get the book finished. So my wife turned to me and said, right, you do that. You do it. So I did. So I sat down and I wrote this book, my novel, South of Market. This was not the working title, by the way. It was initially called Tech Bros. And the intention was to sort of expose some of the stuff we've just been discussing, but in a way that obviously I could use fiction to expose it. So there's some real stuff in here and some anecdotes based on my personal experience. So it's essentially about 4 characters.
Why is it called South of Market? Is that San Francisco?
San Francisco. So Market Street in San Francisco is a kind of demarcation line.
I know, I've been there.
Yeah.
I was there for my honeymoon, so I know about Market Street, and it is definitely a demarcation. So explain.
So South of Market was always a bit grungy. A lot of dead, and it's now, of course, like really, really troubled with fentanyl addiction and
it's apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's horrific. And even then, when I was visiting California when I worked in tech, and I think my last visit was in 2019. It was getting more and more apocalyptic. You could see that something was brewing. But the other interesting thing about South of Market, and every time I walked into South, and I used to do quite a lot of stuff in Soma, I used some venues and stuff there. And again, one of the venues gets into the book as well, the American National Bookbinders Museum, where I ran an event there, and it's in South of Market. And you're literally stepping over hobos and drug addicts and stuff to get into some of these venues. But interestingly, just south of Market was Twitter's headquarters. So the book is essentially a book about how the media manipulated it and manipulated everything and robbed us of our agency and created a fake pandemic. And it's about 4 characters' response to that. Now, the 4 characters are kind of from my world. They're from tech and comms, but they're free thinkers. So I deliberately wanted the 4 characters to respond in the same way as I responded, and then the relationships between them. And so it features 4 characters. The girl on the cover is Anna, who is a comms professional. And she, well, I'm not gonna spoil the plot, but essentially it's about a number of things that happened. There was the massive increase in the value of Bitcoin, and the fact that market was rigged. There was the so-called pandemic, and there was the loss of individual human agency.